Thank you, Rick. And as Rick said, there's a whole bunch of people that do a lot behind the scenes, and members, volunteers, just general do-gooders, and we appreciate every little bit. And of course, we appreciate all of you. And thanks for coming. This talk was originally designed to be a gateway for people that maybe their first time, maybe you've been away for a while, maybe you've heard about it and you're just coming in. And as he said, there's a number of terms and place names that we use that you may not recognize. So we're going to try and demystify that. And as he said, if you have a question or something at some point in the presentation, we'll have a space for questions at the end. But feel free to raise your hand and I'll answer as best we can. All right? Why don't we get started? The introduction to Stellafane. So we're going to go over some of the history of the club and of the concept of what Stellafane is, and we'll show a site map and a little tour around, some common questions, and then hopefully any questions that you may have. Again, this is for you, not for us. Mark? And here's a famous quote from Russell Porter, our founder of the club and beyond, the true founder of the amateur telescope making. Yes, Russell's right behind us. He's a stand-up guy. You can have a conversation with him, but if the discussion gets heated, he folds. All right, I'm here all week. Tip your waiter. And the quote goes, "If an amateur starts out to build a telescope just for fun, he will find before his labors are over that he's become seriously interested in the wonderful mechanism of our universe." Mark? "And finally, there is understandably the stimulus of being able to unlock the mysteries of the heavens by a tool fashioned by one's own hand." Russell wrote that in 1923, and it's still true today. So in 1920, 15 men and 1 woman signed up to learn how to grind their own mirrors and make powerful reflecting telescopes. At that time, Russell Porter, who was born and raised in Springfield, had been out in the world for quite a while. He had gone to MIT and studied architecture, but he attended a talk from one of the early Arctic explorers. This was when the big push was to who's going to be the first to get to the North Pole. And he just caught the bug, and he wanted to go. So he got on a number of these Arctic expeditions and had some serious adventures through his 20s and into a few other years, including being shipwrecked in the Arctic and having to wait for a year to get rescued. At that time, there weren't any radios. The best they could do was put a note and tie it to a balloon and hope somebody found it. So there's some fascinating backstory there regarding Russell Porter's early adventures in life, but those definitely shaped his later life and his accomplishments there. And when he returned to Springfield, he was working with James Hartness, who later went on to become governor of Vermont, working in the machine tool shops down in town. And that's where he went to the machinists there and said, look, you folks are used to working to 1,000th of an inch, 10,000ths of an inch, and that sort of thing. He says, I can show you how to work a surface, the most perfect surface that can be made by hand to less than 1,000,000th of an inch, or just a couple millionths of an inch, using nothing but your hands and some sand and some water. It's a fascinating concept, but it's true. It's part of the beauty of telescope making. He said most were machinists and tool makers at Jones and Lamson Machine Company in Springfield. The lone woman was a school teacher. Their instructor, Russell Porter, was well prepared to guide them, again, to accuracies 1/1000th as large as they were used to working with before. So these were accomplished machinists. We're in the middle of what was called the Precision Valley, where the machine shops up and down the river were all powered by water before there was a large electrification, before there were good electric motors and so forth. All of the machine tools, the lathes and so forth, were run by a system of pulleys and rods and gears. So Russell said, does this idea interest you? Is this intriguing? Heck yeah, tell me more. And remember, these are the 1920s. Now at this time, there were some telescope makers, lens makers, and so forth around the world, but we're talking a lot more money than the average workman or child could afford. So to say, you know, with some simple materials that we can get, you can create something that you couldn't possibly afford. Not only that, but if you put your heart into it and you have the help of some experienced people, you can actually make one better than somebody would sell you. Next. So after successfully completing their scopes and using them, the men decided to build a hilltop observatory and form an official club. So this is what the clubhouse looked like back then. Next slide. Here you see a more modern picture of what it looks like. So December 7th, 1923 was the first official meeting where they incorporated as the Springfield telescope makers. The clubhouse, Stellafane. There have been purists in our club that sort of cringe a little bit when somebody says, oh, Stellafane, I'm going to be at Stellafane. Because the term is now used interchangeably for the entire site, for the clubhouse, and for some people it just means the event, the convention. When in fact, the name of the clubhouse is Stellafane. And that was from Latin words stella and farnum, loosely translated to temple to the stars. And that remains our beloved clubhouse. Next. The club attracted James Hartness, who was first president of Jones and Lamson, so Russell worked for him at the machine company, and he became the governor of Vermont from 1921 to 1922. He was actually a very early benefactor of the club and Russell's efforts in telescope making, and encouraged him in that regard. Next. Hartness had earlier built, he'd encouraged and financed the telescope makers while he was up in Maine. He had gone up to Port Clyde, Maine after his Arctic adventures and actually started what he would hoped would eventually become like an artist colony up in Port Clyde, Maine, built a number of cottages up there and so forth before he returned to Springfield later. And James Hartness had actually built and patented the design for the world's first refracting turret telescope. This is over at the Hartness House Inn on the other side of town. It doesn't look quite like this now because the trees have grown up around it considerably, but you gain access to this through tunnels from the main building. You go down through the tunnels where the Springfield Telescope Makers maintains their museum right now, and then you could go up inside this structure to operate the telescope. So very much like the Porter turret telescope here, which came in later, that was finished in 1930, it allowed you to observe in the comfort, relative comfort of being inside instead of being outside. So you can still see this today in the museum, and those grounds are available. It's on your programs when they have open hours over at the Hartness House. I encourage everybody, if you have never been or if it's been a while, please go. Next. Ralph Flanders later became a senator, and he was one of the founding members as well. Joseph Johnson served as governor and joined the club. If you go up to to Stellafane, I will use the term pink clubhouse, even though, as I say, some members would probably slap me if I use it. If you go up there and you get to go inside the main room inside, you will see hand drawings by Russell Porter of all the founding members around the top of the edge of the top wall. Go ahead. This was the spark that helped Stellafane and amateur telescope making spread like wildfire. He has. Our buddy Albert is also here. So Albert Ingalls read an article that Russell Porter had written regarding making your own telescope, and he was fascinated by this. He was the editor of Sky and Tell, or rather, I'm sorry, Scientific American at the time. So he read this article, he got in touch with Russell Porter, and he came up in 1925 to the club to visit, and picked up a lot from the members and from the scopes that they had built and so forth, and asked Porter if he would collaborate on a series of articles in Scientific American on amateur telescope making, which they did subsequently, And later, that caused such a groundswell of people interested in the topic, correspondence coming in, questions, asking for information, where can I get materials, that it really began the movement at that time. So this year, we're celebrating the 100th anniversary of the actual spark that brought what we have now to fruition. So Albert had been struggling himself, and he was eager to learn if there was any interest among other people. And so again, he discussed this with Russell. Go ahead. During his visit to Stellafane, he gathered enough information to run 2 articles with much of the material, and Russell Porter did all the illustrations. He was a fantastic artist. You've no doubt seen a lot of his artwork. The response was so great that he soon started a regular department devoted to amateur telescope making. Go ahead. In 1928, Porter was invited to join the staff of scientists and engineers being assembled to work on the Hale telescope at Mount Palomar, what was to be and continued to be for some time the largest telescope in use. Go ahead. He left Springfield to work on it. Oscar Marshall, another one of our members, who was a master machinist, also went along to work on the mechanisms. And the Springfield Telescope Maker is the only organization to boast 2 of its members having worked on that. And you can see some of the cutaway drawings that Russell did, where he could take from blueprints, he could create essentially a 3D picture, if you will, of what it would look like once it was built. Truly remarkable.
You might want to mention that 48-inch
Schmidt?
camera that is there, you might call that the finder telescope for the 200-inch.
That's a very good point. Thank you. So here's an aerial overview of the grounds. We are now down here in the Flanders Pavilion at the very bottom. And so Stellafane East, originally we had something less than 3 acres on the left-hand side. This started with land donated by Russell Porter where the clubhouse was built. Later, we had the opportunity to pick up this other land, but years ago, the camping would be down in what was called the Miller's Field, which is now a tree farm, just adjacent to where you came in and the fruit stand, the registration stand was on the left-hand side. Directly across the street is what was Miller's Field. So, but when we had the opportunity to get this land here on this side, it was a no-brainer. This was purchased, Stellafane East. Later, another former president, Hardy Beardsley, had this other adjacent land, and after he logged it out, I believe he offered it to the club for $1. After some haggling, it was decided to give him the $1. So we are now down in the Flanders Pavilion, and a lot of the main camping area is just to the east of us, and then the land rises a little bit, and we have additional roads and camping up there. The Vermont Astronomical Society sets up there, as well as a number of other groups. You can see where the swap tables are, the McGregor Observatory at the top of the hill, and sloping down from that is the main observing field. And what's labeled the domed observatory here is now the Bruning Observatory, after Carl Bruning, a longtime member and outreach evangelizer. He was the one who first introduced myself and many others to the club. The bunkhouse up directly across from the t-shirt table, the place where they sell the raffle tickets and the t-shirts, is known as Tuthill Towers, because Roger Tuthill used to be set up there for many years. So let's move on to the next. The Pink Clubhouse, or Stellafane. Again, Latin for shrine to the stars. It's a loose translation, and we have on the gables, the heavens declare the glory of God. There are some other little Easter eggs hidden around inside the clubhouse, little things that you may not notice, but if you get a chance to go up there and speak with somebody that's on duty in the clubhouse, they can point out some of the more interesting little things you may not notice initially, but then it's like, well, why didn't I notice that before? Go ahead. Stellafane symbol, the little man. He first appeared during a convention in 1930, and digging through the various club records that we have, we're really not sure who created it and brought it up at first. But that has definitely become our trademark. It is a registered trademark now, and it is certainly the symbol of Stellafane. There's the bunkhouse. That has been here on the property since before we acquired it. We didn't build that, but we have used it for a number of things, including telescope making, and it has grown a little bit. We've added to it over the years. Right now, there's no convention functions that take place within it. We've sort of outgrown what was there. We used to sell T-shirts and raffle tickets out of there as well. But it is the central location where we have our well, and we're able to pump water to some of the different areas. Next. The McGregor Observatory, dedicated in 1995, and that was just shortly after I joined the club. That was already in full production and almost completed at that time. When the time came to build the Shootman telescope that's in there and build this observatory, there were a number of members that had actually taken out second mortgages on their house to make this happen, and thankfully with donations those were paid off very rapidly. Next. There's the Shootman. 13-inch Shootman. It was for quite a while the largest Shootman operating in the world. I believe it was eclipsed a few years back. There is a larger one, I'm not sure where right now, but does provide splendid views, and is truly a marvel, and a lot of work and technology goes into making that happen. It's a beautiful design. The Porter Turret Telescope. I generally spend some time in the Porter Turret explaining what it is and how it operates and so forth, and it's a rather interesting design. Again, James Hartness had created his refracting turret telescope on the other side of town, and that inspired Russell and the members here to create this one, which is an interesting design. I like to call it an inside-out Newtonian telescope. You've got a large mirror at the bottom of the tube typically, and the light comes down and hits that, and then it bounces off a small secondary mirror to divert it out to the eyepiece. This one works exactly the opposite of that. The light hits a great big flat mirror, bounces out to the main primary mirror, and then comes back through a hole in the center of that flat to the eyepiece inside. So again, Russell, who had spent much time in the Arctic and whatnot, was tired of being cold, so this was a great design to be able to observe from the relative comfort of inside. My biggest complaint, I like to run this scope. It's fun. It's steampunk. It's very, very cool. No computers necessary. But if we have convention and it happens to coincide with like the peak of the Perseids meteor shower, you can be inside there waiting for people to step up to the eyepiece and observe Saturn or whatever we happen to have in the eyepiece at the time, while outside you hear, ooh, ah, so you can't see the meteors from inside. So it's a trade-off. But it's a pleasure to operate. Strongly encourage you to get up there and take a look if you can. The Ash Dome, which is now the Bruning Observatory, has the Argentini telescope in it, which was donated to us a number of years ago, and a lot of work has gone into making this operational. The support for the dome and everything was built by a number of our members a number of years back, and just the last few years there's been all rewired inside. This is a very, very interesting scope and observatory, and that is just below the McGregor, near the bottom of the observing field. Next. And where we are right now, the Flanders Pavilion. Well, you can see what it is. We used to just bring a big tent down here. So it's named for Ralph Flanders, his brother Ernie, and for Fran Flanders, whom I was fortunate enough to meet when I first joined the club, and she offered me some sage advice. She said, help out where you can and stay out of trouble. So I try and stick to that now. So this was 19, or rather this is 2005, just as it was being completed, and this building has been great. Besides convention, we also use it to store our heavy equipment in the wintertime and so forth, and generally we're all full of woodworking equipment up here right now. We've got our new vacuum coating machine sitting here in a temporary location. Later it's going to be relocated somewhere else, but it's been really great having this, and it was only able to be done through hundreds, if not thousands, of generous donations from club members, friends of Stellafane, and others around the world. Next. The Tower of Babel. You will see this down in the camping fields adjacent to what is called Pine Island. And we do have some very nice wooden signs now that highlight some of these locations around. But the Tower of Babel down there, the wooden structure still stands. It no longer has the satellite dish on the top, but it was an early attempt to bring Wi-Fi signals down into the camping area. And that has since been abandoned, but it is still in place, so you can see where it is. It used to be located up here, just above the pavilion at the height of land here. It's now down in Pine Island. Tut Hill Towers. This was back then, and there is a plaque there dedicating it to Roger Tuthill, who was a longtime member and, quote, everyone's astronomy friend. Roger arranged a number of eclipse trips to Africa and other locations. He used to sell a variety of different astronomy products himself and his old company, and his wife remains a member. Next. This is what it looks like now from the side. We've expanded it with the raffle and just recently added on. You'll see when we add on buildings here on site, oftentimes what we're able to do is we saw and mill our own wood on site. We have our own sawmill. So when we need to cut down trees and whatnot, we make use of that lumber. And this was one of the projects that used quite a bit of lumber from on site. Next. Houston Hollow. Scotty Houston used to camp here for many, many years. He would give our shadowgram. This was his trailer, and it remained on site after his passing. It was bought by John Martin, our site manager, and then it was recently resold from him to another club member, Roger Williams, that still has it down there in its original location. They're camping in it this weekend.
And remind people of what Houston used to do for Sky and Telescope, which made him a memory for many of us on the older side.
He had his shadowgram.
No, before that.
Oh, he had
Sky Wonders.
Deep Sky Wonders was his article in there for many, many, many years.
Susan French did it later, but he was
Yeah, he was the founder, and really, as you say, he became a household name. And you'll see photos of him with his pipe in his mouth at the various scopes and whatnot. But Scotty was very much a mover and shaker in amateur astronomy, and certainly a fixture here, and many of us owe a great deal to his contributions. Our newest observatory, the Andrew Simoni Observatory. This is a spectroheliograph that was rescued. It's a Hale, as in Hale telescope out in Mount Palomar, same guy, who had designed this idea, this method of being able to observe the sun in the narrow wavelengths of hydrogen alpha, so you can see prominences on the sun and other features that are often only visible during a solar eclipse when the moon covers the sun and blocks out that white light that overpowers everything else. This, again, built with wood that was sawed here on site, built by the members. I think we've got the next slide. We've got a little, nope. Yes, this one right here. So here we see Mr. Cook. I'm sorry, it's not a Hale. This is a Cook design, which is slightly different from the Hale design. Russell Porter talking over the design of this. It uses a series of lenses and mirrors to direct a beam of light into the building, and then from there, it's split into the spectrum by a diffraction grating. And through the miracle of rotating prisms, it can basically sweep across the image of the sun at a given wavelength, and the persistence of vision in your own eye creates an image of the sun that you can see by looking through the through the eyepiece. And you can also use it for imaging as well. It's a remarkable design. First started in the 1930s, and I believe this one, the vast majority of the materials were sitting in a abandoned warehouse-style attic in one of the universities, unused. University of Pennsylvania. And one of our members was able to facilitate the donation or the obtaining of that, and was reconstructed, restored. We got the additional materials we needed. There was originally plans to build a spectroheliograph here many, many, many decades ago. And originally, the most expensive and hardest to obtain part was a very fine diffraction grating. And there was one that was donated to the club, or I should say, placed on loan to the club with the idea that we would build this. It didn't happen in a timely fashion, so another amateur astronomer, an amateur telescope maker from up the Connecticut River Valley here, borrowed it from the club to put it in his system up there. And my understanding was his garage burned down and the diffraction grating was lost. So, not the best outcome when somebody loans you something that's very precious. But we were eventually able to get this equipment back, and with the help of some extremely dedicated members, get it built and up and running in the Andrew Simone spectroheliograph, the solar observatory. Again, that is up by the Porter Turret Telescope and the clubhouse. Well worth going in. When the sky is clear enough, they'll actually be viewing the sun with it, and you have the opportunity to do that. But there's some fantastic displays inside outlining the design, the development, and the story that brought it here. 1989, the original historic site was placed on the list of the National Historic Register, so there is a landmark plaque there on the rock outcropping that supports the Porter Turret Telescope. But it encompasses, the historic landmark is actually not just the Porter Turret, but the clubhouse as well. That entire site is on the National Register. Go ahead. Okay. How do I recognize a club member? It's not the Hawaiian shirt. It's the blue shirt. Only members will have a blue shirt with the Stellafane logo on the front and Springfield Telescope Makers on the back. Newer version that you may see still has the little man logo on the front, but they'll have the 100th anniversary logo on the back in a circular 1923 to 2023. What if I need medical attention? There are first aid kits available at a number of the buildings. There's one here, there's one at the clubhouse, there's one at the bunkhouse, or no, at the raffle and t-shirt table, I believe now.
Today it's at the cook tent.
Today at the food tent as well. But another thing about the members is that if you have some kind of either emergency or you see someone in distress that may need some help, if you ask any of the members with blue shirts, most of us are carrying FRS radios. We stay on a particular channel and we can communicate back and forth and get one of our medical staff or our security a person to come and assist with whatever might be needed. How do I find someone who is lost? Again, probably the best thing to do is get in touch with a member, and what we could then do is perhaps if we're down here and we get word, we can make an announcement here, they can make an announcements at the other sites as well, and maybe coordinate, let's meet back at the food tent or wherever they end up being. So again, the members can be very helpful in trying to track someone down because we know there's extremely limited to zero cell communication from here. But one thing I will suggest is that if you are carrying a cell phone, if you enable Wi-Fi calling, then in a lot of cases you can leave your phone in airplane mode and just leave it on Wi-Fi. And that way, one, you won't use up your battery as much, and you may very well be able to get a signal out where you otherwise wouldn't. You need to be in fairly close proximity to one of the buildings for the Wi-Fi to work. But you will find a public Wi-Fi spot near most of the buildings. Where can I buy food and ice? I have no idea. No, seriously, the tent. And they do, our excellent food vendor not only sells food, but he has ice, bottled water, and so forth there. Can I drink the water? That water? No, actually, I've drunk from the garden hose since I was a little kid. I mean, our water comes from a well here on site. Probably has a pretty high iron content, but it's not dangerous. It's potable. Where can I buy stuff that I need? Well, it depends. If you're just looking for a hat or a t-shirt, you can get all that here. Other items, if you need to go to the grocery store, you need to go down to Shaw's and so forth. If you got here, you're probably familiar with the detour that they have while they're replacing that bridge down by McDonald's. So again, the detour signs will direct you down to the center of town where you come out at the traffic lights. If you need to get to, for instance, Shaw's or McDonald's or Bibbins Hardware Store, all of that, you would turn left north on Main Street. If you were heading back towards the highway, you would turn right, would take you back towards the highway and the hotel.
I had a question that someone asked. They left their suitcase home, so they needed to buy clothes.
They needed to buy clothes. Well, here in Springfield, I'm really not sure, but you know, the nearest larger concentration of commerce is in Claremont across the river. So probably go back to the highway and then go north to the next exit and follow. Yes, there is. There's a Walmart there, there's Market Basket, there's Tractor Supply, a few other stores that are helpful. In the back, Janet?
I just wanted to say, if it's basic clothes like underwear, socks, that kind of thing, Dollar General, you go down to McDonald's and turn left. It's right there.
Yep. That's good, yes, yes. So if you're going to the center of town and you get to that traffic light after going through the back roads, you can turn left, that starts pointing you north, and then just continue north on Route 106. Dollar General is there, Bibbins Hardware Store, as well as a number of other small stores.
Continue to get to the Dollar General, just go to the first driveway
Yeah,
on the left, after you turn left. That's the Dollar General. They do have underwear and maybe basic pants and shirts, t-shirts and stuff. But buy your t-shirts here.
yeah, right. You know, because everybody will say, what's that? And then you've got to give this whole talk when you go home. Do we sell souvenirs? And why should I support the raffle? Well, yes, we do sell souvenirs. We've got t-shirts, hats, bags, a number of different things. We kind of try and create new things all the time based on what people are asking us for here on site. And as far as supporting the raffle, aside from entrance fee in order to get in here, the raffle and the t-shirt sales are really what makes this convention happen. And indeed, given the amount of land that we have here and the maintenance thereof and the work that's always going on and just keeping the lights and the heat and the internet on, the convention is what really keeps the club alive. If it weren't for convention, we would really struggle. So a big part of our financial stability is your folks' generosity in buying t-shirts, buying the raffle tickets. We've got wonderful prizes that are donated every year, always the top tier prizes from Teleview, Al Nagler and family and company. They're wonderful. That's what we shoot for every year. But there's a kids raffle as well with prizes specific for them. And there are many, many other wonderful prizes that are donated. So I encourage you to buy early and buy often. And buy each color, because the biggest disappointment is when they say, in the pink, and all I have is blue and yellow. So I bought 3 different colors this year myself, knowing full well they're probably going to bring out a 4th color sometime this afternoon. So I'm going to keep an eye on it, and I suggest you do as well. Next. What do I need to get in and out? Your pink badge. Just show your pink badge when you're coming back into the gate. And I just asked, while I was on the gate, I suggested to people, if you roll down your driver's window so we can see it better, because car windows are so heavily tinted now, that it can be hard to see. It just helps keep things moving. And how do I get to different locations? You got your good walking shoes on, and when those give out, we have the shuttle bus that runs around. It started at 9 o'clock this morning. I think it runs until 6 this afternoon. In the program, it will tell you how late the bus runs, because I'm unsure of the actual time, but I believe it's 6. Yeah. What's the difference between a technical talk and an informal talk? Well, it's a little blurry sometimes. I host the informal talks on Friday nights, and often we get some fairly light programs. We had a great little presentation on a couple that a couple of years ago were recording bats at Stellafane, and they gave us a little introduction to bats and their ultrasonic detector and so forth, and that was a lot of fun. We also do get some fairly technical ones there as well, but typically the technical ones go into a single topic, and they tend to be more in-depth and a bit longer, half an hour or more in length. So encourage you to look at what is being offered, and by all means, join the ones that strike your fancy. What program should I attend? This one. And frankly, again, look through there depending on your own interest level, your own skill level, or you might just see something that says, geez, you know, I've never heard of that. Maybe it's worth checking out. So by all means, take advantage to the full breadth and depth. Let me just say, you can never sample everything at one single convention. And everybody's experience will be different. It very much depends on what you bring to the party yourself in terms of your own interests and your energy level and so forth. Are there special events for kids? Yes, there are. A number of them were yesterday. I know that Chris Larson is doing 2 up in the McGregor today as well. Yesterday, for the first time at convention, we had a hike up to Mount Ephraim here just out the end of the dirt road. We actually did it during pre-convention setup. It's about a 4.2 mile round trip, but it's a good stretch of the leg, and it's a good hike. There are also, just on this side of the food tent, the Dodsons, Steve Dodson and family, that come down from Sudbury, Ontario every year. Steve has been an amateur telescope maker for a year. He has a little booth set up. I thought I could get my face painted there. It's all colorful, lit up and everything, and it's an optical demo for kids showing how lenses work and how you can make a telescope and whatnot. And Steve always brings some very interesting stuff to conventions, so I encourage you to check that out. Where can I go for a shower? I don't use them myself, but there are some showers set up just in the woods down here. There's a little like black plastic sheeting enclosed area where I think you pay $1 or whatever and you can get in there and use the shower. I'm not an expert on that. I bring my own behind my camper and do one of these. So, and the baby wipes. Is the gate locked? This year, for the first time, I believe, the gate is not locked. We used to lock it at certain times, particularly during pre-convention, so people weren't sneaking in early. But we've kept the gates open, and it's pretty much honor system. Sometimes people will come in late at night, and they'll go back to the registration booth the next day and say, look, I came in late, you weren't here, can I get my badge? And we appreciate everybody's cooperation. Sir? Preparing for the next convention. No, the club is very much a telescope making club. So the members of the Springfield Telescope Makers do work on and make their own telescopes as well. So besides the maintenance of the grounds, which takes almost half a year to get them ready for next year, just beating back the woods, which are constantly growing bigger, keeping the areas mowed, trees that fall down in the wrong places, working on long-term construction projects that we've had for a long time. So we hold our club meetings here on the Dark of the Moon weekend on the calendar. And you can see our calendar on site on the stellafane.org website, which shows like full moon work party, for instance. So those will be on the full moon weekends opposite the dark of the moon weekends. And those are where there are generally people here maintaining the grounds, helping to keep things afloat and all that. So it does not sit empty. And we've also had special events where we'd have the Boy Scouts come in for a camp over on the weekend or something like that. We're doing more and more outreach to the local and regional community and beyond, and we're doing star parties at national parks and so forth. St. Gaudens National Park. We're going to be doing one up at the Mount Escutney State Park here in September as well. And we do have two what we call up all night open house star parties here on site, one in the spring and one in the fall. And again, once those dates are set, they're on the calendar on the website.
Borderline inaccessible in the winter.
Yes. Well, not just borderline inaccessible, you're right. To the clubhouse, that is not kept plowed out in the wintertime. That's a snowshoe-in kind of event once the snow falls. But we do keep it plowed out to the McGregor Observatory and typically down to the pavilion here as well. Because even though there's not a lot going on, our site manager will be on site doing certain things. Beetlejuice is our heating unit over here. There's a wood-fired heating unit over here, and that keeps portion of this building from freezing in the wintertime. So we can see on the webcam what the thermometer reads, and John can get in his truck and come over and reload Beetlejuice and make sure that it stays.
By clubhouse, do you mean the pink house?
Yes, I mean Stellafane. Yes, the pink house. Yeah, that side of the site, because that's technically a driveway and there isn't any of the working, if you will, equipment over there that we need to maintain things and do projects, so that does not stay plowed out. But we have snowshoed in the wintertime and just lit a fire and had fun. And some of the locals do cross-country ski through and whatnot. So, next slide. Okay, why do I need a red light at night? I think probably most people understand the idea of night vision and trying to preserve that, and how long it takes your eyes to really adapt. So if we came out like last night after the Friday night talks and we look out, you could probably see 3 stars until your eyes could adjust a little bit better and they gradually open up and you can see more. Red light tends to allow your eyes to stay dilated, so it's to preserve that night vision. So we do say, though, that after the Friday night talks and after the Saturday night presentation, we have sort of a half-hour amnesty program. You can drive your car out. It's understood that safety is more important, and that's the most important thing. We don't want anybody to get hurt because they wanted to leave with their headlights off because they didn't want to bother anybody. Now, most modern cars, you can't even turn the headlights off. You don't have the choices that we used to have years ago. So safety first, but we try to preserve night vision as much as we can, and that is why we use red lights at night. Can I look through someone's telescope? Absolutely. You will see people being generous and offering the view. You'll often see people standing in line, and they'll tell you what we're looking at, what you can expect to see. Most people are very, very sharing in that regard. So do not be afraid to ask. What are the swap tables? Also affectionately referred to as the swamp tables. Down at the north end of this camping area, just down the street here, is the swap table area. And that's where amateurs, conference attendees are welcome to swap, buy, sell items that they have that are relevant to astronomy or amateur telescope making. We don't really allow any commercial vendors. You won't see a big booth by Celestron or anything like that down there, but it's all to promote the art of telescope making, and you can often pick up materials that you might be able to use for your next project, and books and so forth. Where can I charge my phone? Right there. There's a bunch of power outlets right in the back where you can plug in a charger and charge your phone there. We just ask you don't charge large, like battery packs for your CPAP machine or for your telescope. CPAP, I would personally make an exception for that because obviously that's life support. That's critical. And how do I get rid of my garbage? There's a big dumpster right by the food tent. Just toss it up over the edge of that and right in there. And if you're walking around and you see somebody's dropped, an empty water bottle or something, help us out. Pick it up, take it with you, and drop it in there. We really appreciate that because after we are all exhausted and the sun has risen Sunday morning, the next big job is cleanup. And we're all in here getting all that done. So the more that's done ahead of time, the much easier that goes. Next, Mark. And again, be sure to visit the original Stellafane historic landmark, where you will see the Stellafane Clubhouse, the Pink, the Porter Turret Telescope, and the Andrew Simone Observatory. And they've done a lot of work. There's also the wild blueberry bushes, which are one of my favorites. The free shuttle bus. So it says you can take the shuttle bus over there or walk up to the fruit stand where you came in, and it's the driveway, the dirt road, directly across the street from the fruit stand. And next. And that's it. Any other questions that we haven't touched upon yet? Thank you for coming. And again, any questions as you're here, ask anybody in the blue Springfield Telescope Makers t-shirts. We appreciate you, everyone. Thank you.